So who was the better coach at that place? Urban Meyer at Florida or Kirby Smart in Athens? I think this is a legitimate question. I was reading something that was written over at CBS about the top hires of this century, and the list at number 1, Nick Saban, easy one. Number 2 had Urban at Florida, and then number 3, Dabo at Clemson. Pete Carroll at 4 his time at SC. Kirby Smart at 5, just in front of Jim Harbaugh at Michigan. I don't think those two things are the same things at all. But, in a century where so much of college football has revolved around a couple places, I mean, not many places, Kirby has definitely taken Georgia, obviously, to the promised land a couple times, same way that Urban did at Florida. The difference between Urban and Kirby, of course, is Kirby's only been at one place. I don't anticipate Kirby going to another school, but we'll see. And Urban, for all of his off-the-field shenanigans, he's clearly one of the best coaches in college football history. But I will say this, and I'm going to go through this right now. I think as good as Urban was at Florida, Kirby's been better at Georgia. And here's a couple of reasons why. First of all, Kirby's been at Georgia now for longer than Urban's entire time at Florida. Kirby has 19 total losses in 9 years. Urban had 15, I think, in a handful of seasons. 6 seasons at Florida? That's right, 6 seasons at Florida. And it was a spectacular 6 seasons, going 9-3, and then going 13-1 and winning the national championship, 9-4, 13-1, winning the national championship, 13-1, losing to Nick Saban and company. This is the reason why I would take Kirby right here, is the way, and we don't know this yet about Kirby, how he'll leave Georgia, but Urban left Florida in a mess. You could argue they've not recovered from that mess, but that's pretty harsh because we're 15 years later. That's pretty, ridiculous to say that something that happened 15 years ago would still be affecting an institution now. So that's on Florida. But, in his 6 seasons at Florida, he won every bowl game but one, which was the loss to Michigan in the Capital One Bowl. He here's another sort of challenging moment for him. He had 3 top 10 seasons. So half of his seasons at Florida were not top 10 seasons. The highs at Florida under Urban were really high. The lows were not overwhelmingly low, but the lows at Georgia, Georgia's had one non-tip top 10 season under Kirby Smart. They've had one non-top 7 season. Okay, so these, like last year, you could argue is the 3rd worst season that he's had at Georgia. I mean, think about that. They won the SEC championship, and you can make that argument. So this, I think a lot of y'all know this channel, this organization, our outlet, it's not here to just heap praise on Kirby Smart all the time. That's not what we do. I was covering the SEC in Georgia at the time that Urban Meyer was around. Everybody else that covers this beat wasn't, I think, with a couple of exceptions. So I've got perspective dating back to that time. I remember Urban getting Florida sort of out of the post-Spurrier malaise that occurred from 2002 on. I mean, it was not great at Florida. It's not been great since he left, but I don't think that's because of Urban. I just think I think it's challenging. I think Georgia's gotten a lot better. I think the difference for Steve Spurrier in his time at Florida was, as soon as you saw, and this is kind of unfair, but as soon as you saw the Nick Saban changed the SEC the same way that Steve Spurrier changed the SEC. And I'll talk about that in a second. Make sure you're taking advantage of our offer. I'm going to put the link down below. You can get 3 months of Dawg Post for the price of one, and the magazine included. A lot of people are taking advantage of this. Magazine is getting mailed out this week. Tuesday is going to be when they start going out. So if you ordered it, hang in there. It's going to be in your post office box very quickly. But we're getting those out there now. This is an opportunity that's not going to last long. Take advantage of 3 months of Dawg Post for the price of one, and the 2025 preview included for free. I'll flip through it as soon as I get them in my hands here before we mail them, so y'all can see it in my hands. But it's a great offer. It gets you almost halfway through the football season, so take advantage of that. The link is right down there below right now. When Spurrier was at Florida, Georgia that's as weak a time as Georgia's had in the last, probably since the 50s in college football. Florida totally took advantage of that. Steve Spurrier took advantage of that. Georgia being good would not have prevented Florida from being good at the time. But we have to acknowledge about Florida that the Gators, in their history, have had two exceptional head coaches. Two probably of the best four head coaches in SEC history coached at Florida in a 20-year period. And they ripped through 3 national championships in a 10-year period. It was unbelievable success at Florida, the likes of which really they had never seen. The SEC was not like it is right now, where multiple programs have won national championships in the last half decade. It wasn't like that in the SEC in the 90s. Okay, you go from 92 with Alabama all the way to 98 with Tennessee. 3 programs won it then, but programs weren't challenging for the national championship like LSU, then Alabama, then Georgia. You had Auburn before that. You played for the national championship in 13. From 2013 until 2022, that 10-year period, 10 season period, you had the SEC virtually playing for the national championship every single season. That did not happen in the 90s. It was a different league. When Nick came in 2000 at LSU, immediately the league changed. It became about not just coaching, but recruiting and development. Recruiting took off in a way that we had never seen. He left LSU. That left a space of time there for Urban to take over, and he did. And he was a unbelievably good recruiter. The biggest thing that the guys at the top of this CBS list have in common, I think with the exception of Dabo, I must say, is that they are relentless recruiters. When you look at when Dabo had success, he had the best teams. He's going to have a very good team this season. I don't think I would say they're the best team. I don't think we can say they're not the best team, but I can't definitively say that they are the best team. Those are not all the same thing. So that's the challenge right now. Can you recruit? The best recruiter in college football right now is still Kirby Smart. That's why he has the likelihood of winning a national championship in these next half decade is not very low. It's high, but it's always hard to do. When you look at comparing the time period, the 6 seasons of Urban at Florida and the 9 seasons so far of Kirby at Georgia, 8 top 10s, 3 SEC championships, 2 national championships, compared to 6 seasons at Florida for Urban, 3 top 10s, playing for the national championship twice, winning it twice, playing for the SEC 3 times, winning it twice. A more complicated path back then, for sure. But I think Kirby has had a better time at Georgia than Urban had at Florida. In addition, the abrupt ending of Urban's time at Florida set Florida back. We don't know what the ending will be like at Georgia. We don't know if it will be abrupt for Kirby, but look, the endings are always abrupt, right? You don't land planes in college football. Everybody just bails out eventually. But I do think he was I think Greg McGarity for sure needs to be given credit for recommending a change at the top. And I think that Jerry Moorhead needs to be given credit for doing that. I mean, firing a coach is the easy part. It's obvious it's not working. The hard part is getting the right person, the right fit. Firing Terry Bowden at Clemson was the most obvious thing. I was on the field when that season in 2008, when Clemson was roller coastering all over the place. I watched them play Alabama. I watched them play Florida State. The loss, I think it was to Duke, was inexplicable. it was a roller coaster. Firing him was the 100% correct call. Hiring Dabo was not the most obvious answer. So, Terry Don needs to be given credit for making that call. But I think at Georgia, Kirby's not changed anything in the SEC. He's changed Georgia. Has that changed the SEC? I don't think so. I think it just means there's a new power in the league. Or it's not a new power, it's a power that's powering. So that's a very different thing. But if I were to take a look at these two guys, both, elite head coaches, both significantly good. Look, as good as Urban was, this is crazy, but he's not great against the other really good head coach. He's not great. His record against the other sort of great coaches. Dabo has whipped him multiple times. I was on the field for the Orange Bowl when they beat their ass. I've seen, Nick and Urban. That's not gone well for Urban all of the time. The great win in the Sugar Bowl in 2014, but for the most part, Nick has had Urban's number. Generally speaking, I would say. Urban and Nick, Urban and Kirby never played somehow, but that's never going to happen as we move forward. But it is surprising. And then for Kirby, his kryptonite was Nick Saban / Alabama, and we'll see. For Nick, he's got 2 losses to Dabo in a national championship game. He's got lost to Kirby in the national championship game. He's got a win over Kirby in the national championship game. He's got a win over Dabo in the national championship game. I don't know that there's a kryptonite for Nick. It's that he's retired, but he totally changed the league. He's clearly the best coach in college football of all time. I don't think you can put Bear over him. I don't think you can put Spurrier over him. But the SEC, it's hard to say, Pete Carroll's a better. No, I don't know. I would say that. I think Pete Carroll's exceptional, but I don't think. I don't know that this league is so full of venom everywhere that it's hard to express just how complicated it is to win there. Easy Ed Orgeron was the head coach at Mississippi. In 2008, you had Ed Orgeron at Ole Miss. You had Nick at you had Urban at at Florida. Fulmer was still at Tennessee. You had Nick at Alabama. You had Spurrier at South Carolina. You have 5 national championship winning coaches in a league that has 12, and I may well be forgetting somebody. Mark Richt never won the national championship. That doesn't mean he's not a good coach. So this league is something that's hard to deal with. You tell me what you think about below. Why don't you rank the top 5 coaches of this century, and we'll talk about it. Thanks for watching.